Hello, friends. I am making a video today to discuss um, a post that Lloyd shared in the Course in Miracles support group that is quoting Keith Kavanaugh. So I'm just going to start reading and I'm going to make comments as I go. Okay, so here we go. So Keith says, when you finally understand what Jesus is really saying in the Course, it's pretty mind-blowing and sobering. I'm going to skip around a little bit. The person Jesus is talking to in the Course is not me, Keith. He is talking to the decision maker mind outside of time and space who believes in Keith. Okay, so just right off the bat, there's a problem here because Jesus is talking to you. Now, he's not talking to the ego, he is talking to you, who you really are. So this whole text that we're going to talk about is problematic because it's not understanding who you really are. So, okay. The person Jesus is talking to in the Course is not me, Keith. So that from that perspective, and what Keith is saying here is that Keith is the ego. And that's just not correct. I am not the ego. You are not your ego. And the ego is not even a thing, which he does say here, but it's still misunderstanding the identity because I am really here. You are really here. You are real. God created you, and nothing can happen to that. But the ego is not you. And so this thing where he's saying like the personality, like Ben, is not who's being talked to. That's not right. Okay, so when I first started studying the Course, I think Jesus is saying that inside Keith is the thought system of the ego and the thought system of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so, and I, Keith, am choosing the thought system. Okay, so technically, the ego is inside you. The problem here, again, is really has to do with the levels. So you are not who you think you are. So as beginners in the Course, before we've really done a lot of forgiveness, you identify as the ego. So to you, what you think you are is the ego. So of course, the ego is not inside the ego. That doesn't make any sense. But the ego is within the Holy Spirit. Now, it's not real. It is an illusion within the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit knows that and sees it, but it's not somewhere else. And beyond that, the Holy Spirit covers and encompasses everything. There's nothing outside of the Holy Spirit because the Holy Spirit is God. Okay. So the ego is basically an idea of separation that occurs within the mind. It doesn't occur somewhere else. Everything is within the mind. It's just the real question is, who are you and what is the ego in relation to who you are? All right. The Course tells me that Keith has never done anything wrong, but it also tells me he's never done anything right. Well, Keith hasn't done anything. And again, this is confusing because it's like saying the way he's using your name is sort of like a trying to make you disassociate, like Ben has never done anything, Ben has never been right or wrong. Well, that's not really true because through everything that has happened in your life, you have been there. It's somebody, I challenge somebody to tell me that you haven't been here for your life. It's obvious. We're all here. Our life is happening. There's no denying that. So the question, once again, and the confusion stems from the identification. And please don't misunderstand that, because another confusion that happens is thinking that we need to change what we identify with. That's not correct. There's a very simple reason why he's never done anything right or wrong. He doesn't actually exist as an individual self. So, okay, you do exist. You, as a Christ, you do exist because God created you. There is no individual self. That is true. Illusions can't do anything. Yep, that's true. Now, because Keith is the ego, here we go again. I am utterly and completely incapable of love. So something I want to add here that's important to understand is the ego has no stability. So just because you're early in the stages of development and don't really, if you haven't connected with the Holy Spirit or are usually connecting with the Holy Spirit, it doesn't mean that the ego is all encompassing. It's never all encompassing. It can't be. The ego is darkness. It's something that clouds your mind and it prevents you from seeing who you really are, which is a Christ. But this idea that it's just not true that everything is a lie when you're with the ego thought system, because everything that's believed as part of the ego thought system or the programs that the ego thought system is running, those things are a lie. But all of reality is still here, okay? And it's not like you're separate or not in reality because you're using the ego thought system. That's not how it works. All right, let's keep going. Course tells me it does not attempt to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what it can be taught. Yep. What Jesus is saying is that it is beyond what can be taught to egos. Yes, of course, the ego doesn't do anything or learn anything because it's not really a thing. It's just a set of illusions that come into the mind and are temporarily believed. Okay. It does aim, talking about the Course, sorry. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Here he means that the Course aims at removing Keith from the mind so that love can happen through the mind unimpeded. Again, this is the same thing I've been talking about. This is just going to confuse you, okay? Because what happens when you choose the Holy Spirit thought system is you become who you really are, which is a Christ. That's what Jesus did. He chose against the ego and he continued making that choice until all of the illusions of the ego were seen through as illusions and there was nothing left but Holy Spirit. And then he became who he really was. He didn't stop being Jesus. That doesn't make any sense. So you are who you are. I'm Ben. And as Ben, who I really am is temporarily believing that I'm a limited individual. That's the ego. So I don't stop being Ben. What I do is I stop believing that I am limited in this way, in this personal way. So those beliefs go away, and then I realize what I really am, which is a Christ. Okay, here we go. Let's keep going. Skip a little bit. The Course is about undoing the mind's belief in the illusory psychological self. Okay, sure. All right. Jesus and the Holy Spirit are the exact same thing. That is not correct. Jesus is Jesus. The Holy Spirit is a thought system that is equivalent to God. It's the same thought system that God uses, that God is. God doesn't use a thought system. But Jesus is a person, you could say. He's not a separate person. He's not a personal person, but Jesus is Jesus. Jesus isn't someone else. So you don't disappear when you purify the ego. Okay, you don't. That's just not how it works. Jesus is also unique. Everybody is unique, and that's obvious. You're unique. I'm unique. There's nobody like you. What we share in common is that we're all created by God. Okay, and we all have the same mind fundamentally, we have the same essence, which is that we're the sonship. We were created by God, and our fundamental essence is the Holy Spirit mind. Okay, the ego is the false thing, the darkness that wasn't created. It came into being only as an illusion that was believed in, and then it will exit. Okay, and throughout that whole framework of creation, and then this ego happens, and then it stops. You've been there the whole time, who you really are. Okay, so Jesus and Holy Spirit are not the same thing, and even though Jesus fully uses the Holy Spirit thought system, but this is also important to not confuse, because when we're practicing the course, there is a difference between asking Jesus for help and asking the Holy and connecting with the Holy Spirit. Okay, the Holy Spirit is within you. It is you, and I'm not trying to say it's in here. Okay, it's within your mind, which is actually everywhere, and there's no edges on it. Okay, so the Holy Spirit is everywhere. It's within everybody equally. Jesus is with you when you think of him. Okay, but you are not Jesus. That doesn't make sense. That's not how it works. Jesus is Jesus, you are you, and what we share is the Holy Spirit. Okay? The decision maker mind stopped believing in the person of Jesus and chose to be the Holy Spirit and said, no. Okay, now we're making another entity. The decision maker is not another entity. Okay, and I don't really even want to I don't like that term, the decision maker, because it's making it seem like there's this other thing that's choosing thought systems. Okay, that's not how it works. We are Christ, and that's always the case. Okay, we're a Christ, and the Christ has started to believe in the set of illusions called the ego, and it's going to learn. It is learning right now. You are learning what it means to believe in illusions, and you're learning what the truth is. Okay, which is that you are a Christ, that God created you. Okay, and through learning, you make better decisions. You appear to make better decisions, and that's just a part of learning. That's a part of the way the mind works. Okay, the mind, the Holy Spirit isn't stupid. It's not inert. Okay, now it's true that it doesn't do anything, meaning it doesn't do anything in the world, but it is, it's alive. Okay, and again, I wanted to say it's active, but I don't want that to be confused, because it doesn't mean it's not doing anything in the world. It doesn't have an activity in the world, but it is alive. Okay, and it's you. The decision maker mind stopped believing in the person of Jesus and chose to be the Holy Spirit instead. Okay, you don't choose to be anything. So that's identification. And identification is not the name of the game here, because identification, if you know anything about math, 1 equals 1. Okay, you have 1 is identical to 1. We don't want any of that. That equation is not what we're doing here. There's not I am equal to the Holy Spirit, or I am the ego right now, and then I want to become the Holy Spirit. No. That's not what we're doing. You are a Christ. Okay, and because God created you with free will, you get to choose your thought system. And as people here appearing in bodies and on earth, it's because we've chosen the ego thought system. The point is to choose again. And it's not like you're not creating the Holy Spirit. So the thought systems aren't equal. Okay, the ego and the Holy Spirit are not like similar but different thought systems. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. The Holy Spirit is the natural mind. So we're not like switching out the ego for the Holy Spirit. You could sort of say that, but I don't want people to be confused. What we're doing is we're connecting with the Holy Spirit, which is our natural mind as a Christ, and we're looking at the Holy Spirit, we're looking at the ego, and through that, the ego is seen to not really exist. Okay, so yes, we have to choose initially to join with the Holy Spirit, but it's not a matter of changing your identification. Like, I don't want to be an ego, I want to be a Holy Spirit. No, that's not right. Okay, so the decision, so I keep reading the same part again because I want to make sure it's clear. The decision maker mind stopped believing in the person of Jesus and chose to be the Holy Spirit instead. And only the Holy Spirit remains. That is correct. Of course, the Holy Spirit always is the only thing that remains because that's what God created. That is the original purity of who you are. That's never been touched. It's never changed. The Holy Spirit does not come and go. Okay, it wasn't born and it won't die. The ego, on the other hand, has never existed. It's just something that's been believed in temporarily. Okay. Jesus ceased. Okay, so and then only the Holy Spirit remains, and that again, that's true because once the ego thought system is seen for what it is, first of all, it's never going to be chosen again because you know that the ego is what's the source of badness, evil, darkness. Okay, and darkness isn't real, but when you believe in the ego thought system, you believe in evil, and nobody wants that. So as soon as you see it completely, it's gone, it's done. All right, so that is true that only the Holy Spirit remains when the ego is purified. That's the atonement. Jesus ceased to be because he never was. That, no, again, I've already gone over this a couple times, but yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about it. That's a whole mess of confusion. So you will not cease to be. It's just that who you think you are right now is not right. Okay. Let's see here. How much the ego we believe ourselves to be actually hates and tries to avoid this truth. All right. It's why Ken was so vilified for his teachings. Well, yeah, people hate to see. It's true that egos react, obviously, are very reactionary and will attack and defend, especially when they hear a true message. About really, I mean, you can just see what happened to Jesus. He was murdered because of these teachings. So we all, as good, healthy egos, want to rewrite the course. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, people like to rewrite the course. That's true. It's actually about undoing the ego. That is true. Undoing the self, the false self, yeah. But not the true self, which is a Christ. All right, well, I think that covers it. If you listen to this whole thing, you're a brave soul. I hope it was helpful. I'll catch you all later. Bye.